and the fear of a big task.
And all the responsibility is on me.
Okay. Now let me while you're thinking, you think about some things that would cause you to be afraid to step out. Okay. Here's something that you might want to consider when you look at the task. And when I talk to one person, I am always talking to myself as well, because I have some of the same issues in certain areas. But one thing I'm learning, and this book along with some other books is really helping me to deal with another thing that's been in my mind, it's kind of like been there, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that, okay? When we are faced with a big challenge, we have to look at it like a professor told me. Pose the question, how do you eat an elephant? Now,
One bite at a time.
the elephant is a huge animal. And the answer came, one bite at a time. Here's another analogy, and I believe it's found right in the book, this book that we're dealing with. How do ants, because we're going to get to a principle that deals with the ants. How do ants build their ant hills or store their food? One grain at a time. This guy said he took an ant farm and just watched the ant move that sand, all of that sand, from one side to the other side. And he knew it was going to happen, but he was trying to figure out how you going to move all that sand. And he said he just sat there. And the ant, we learned so much from the ant. The ant is industrious. That's one thing that we have to get in our minds if we're going to be successful. That goes with diligent. We have to be industrious. Do one thing at a time. The ant will take one grain and take his time and cross all the way over to the other side, put that down, go back and get one more grain. Grain of sand. You know how tiny a grain of sand is? And can you imagine how long it might take to move sand from one side to the other? But guess what? He never stops. And he keeps on doing it. It's a huge task, but he keeps on doing it one grain at a time. When we find our potential and the thing that causes us to be afraid to step out, if it is because the task seems like it's too huge, think of the ant, one grain at a time. Think of how you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. Those analogies have helped me through some of my coursework when it became so much work, and I'm like, why do these professors want to give us so much? How you going to get all this done, and you got a life to live? But I had to stop, calm myself down, one step at a time. Just take one step at a time. Because when you start looking at the whole thing, sometimes it becomes so overwhelming till you just completely shut down. And what happens? Your potential is what? Buried. And you go nowhere. You got one? Had to talk up now.
I'm going to fail.
Fear of failure?
People, I'm going to mess with somebody's stuff and somebody else going to think I'm stupid.
Ah, okay. Fear of failure. And then fear of what other people will think about your failure. Is that pretty well what you're saying?
Or fear of judgment.
Fear of judgment.
Mine is also a lack of ambition and drive. I don't care enough to really, really do it. I don't really care enough to do a whole bunch of stuff that I do.
Okay. Now, there's a word for that in Scripture. And it's an old English King James Version word. And so it might do us well to, now I'll tell you what it means in English. Oh God, and we may have to, somewhere in here, do a study on that word, because it's a whole